welcome everyone here tonight. Could I just get everyone to please stand? We're going to have the national anthem sung by the Orange Male Voice Choir.
Australians, oh, let us rejoice, for we are young and free, with golden soil and wealth for toil. Our home is girt by sea. Our land abounds in nature's gifts, of beauty rich and rare. In history's page, let every stage advance Australia fair. In joyful strains then let us sing, advance Australia fair.
Thank you. Much. We could be seated for just a moment. Before I start the meeting, I would just like to say a few words about the Queen. It is important to acknowledge that today's council meeting is the first in Orange since the death of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. As a community, we acknowledge the Queen's lifetime of service and high esteem in which she is held by Australians. On September 8, Queen Elizabeth II, our monarch of 70 years, passed away. No matter your views on our current system, her service and dedication are beyond dispute and has been acknowledged around the world. Of course, Orange met the Queen twice. She toured with Prince Philip in 1953 on her coronation tour and then again in 1970. Indeed, Coronation Drive stands as witness to her visit. No matter the future, I ask that today we pay respect to Her Majesty. An image of the Queen is always present during these ceremonies as a reminder that the monarch in Australia is Australia's head of state. While the official period of mourning continues in Australia, the image of the Queen will remain in place in the form of this portrait, flanked by our national and state flags. In due course, images of King Charles III will begin to be used once they are approved by the Australian Government. I ask for a minute's silence. Following this, the Orange Male Voice Choir will sing God Save the King. Thank you.
God save our gracious King, long live our noble King, God save the King. Send him victorious, happy and glorious, long to reign over
Thank you.
No, thank you. That was good. Well done, sir. All good.
Okay, well, I'll declare the meeting open still. And in the event of an emergency, the building may be evacuated. You'll be required to vacate the building by the rear entrance and gather at the breezeway between the library and art gallery buildings. This is Council's designated emergency muster point. Under no circumstances is anyone permitted to re-enter the building until the all clear has been given, an area deemed safe by authorised personnel. In the event of evacuation, a member of Council's staff will assist any member of the public with a disability to vacate the building. No apologies.
No apologies, Mr. Mayor. No one on Zoom for once.
I'll move on to item 1.2, live streaming and recording. Council is being live streamed and recorded. By speaking at the council meeting, you agreed to be live streamed and recorded. Please ensure that if and when you speak at this council meeting that you ensure you are respectful to others and use appropriate language at all times. Orange City Council accepts no liability for any defamatory or offensive remarks or gestures made during the course of this council meeting. A recording of this council meeting will be made for administrative purposes. Item 1.3 is acknowledgement of country. I would like to acknowledge the Wiradjuri people who are the traditional custodians of the land. I'd also like to pay respect to the elders both past and present of the Wiradjuri nation and extend that respect to other Aboriginal Australians who are present. Item 1.4, any declarations of interest from councillors? Councillor Evans.
Mayor, I'd like to declare an interest in item 5.10 as my business is a member of TDO Limited.
Thank you. Any other councillors? We'll move on to the council meeting will now adjourn for the conduct of the open forum. We have 3 speakers tonight. Our first speaker is Bernadette Allam, speaking on item 4.2, notice of motion, Blue Trees and Benches project. Come up to the podium there, Bernadette. I'll just introduce the councillors before you start. I'll go from my left here. That's Councillor Whitten. Councillor Whitten, Councillor Greenhouse, Councillor McDonald, Deputy Mayor Councillor Power, Councillor Mallard, Councillor Peterson, Councillor Duffy, Councillor Floyd, Councillor Evans, Councillor Kinghorn and Councillor Miletto. You have 5 minutes. Thanks, Bernadette.
Thank you. There is absolutely no room on here, sorry. Okay, so I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land in which we meet today, the Wiradjuri people. Also pay my respects to elders past and present of the Wiradjuri nation. We respect and honour the Aboriginal elders, past, present and future, and acknowledge their stories, traditions, living cultures and traditional custodians in this room and on this land. I commit to building a brighter future. I also wanted to acknowledge all people who have direct experience of suicide, including those who have attempted and those who are bereaved by suicide. The voices of people with lived experiences is essential in developing our suicide prevention work. Last time I stood here, last I had the privilege of standing here was in 2000 and everything I wrote. Hey, sorry. So I had the ultimate privilege of standing and addressing my city's council on the 6th of July in 2001. It's beautiful to see such a diverse change in our council. At that meeting, we had an outcome of an anonymous decision to move forward in the Blue Tree project and suicide prevention benches. We were approved 2 trees and 15 benches to be placed on council land. I wanted to speak today just to really make sure that everybody's understanding the importance of these benches. So suicide is the leading cause of death amongst Australians aged 15 to 24 in Australia. In 2020, 381 Australian young people aged between 18 and 24 took their own lives. 99 deaths by suicide occurred among children and adolescents 5 to 17, with the majority of those aged 15 to 17. Deaths by suicide represent 31% of all deaths of young people aged 15 to 17. In the Orange area in the past 6 weeks, we have lost 4 young men and in the past year, the youngest child was 12. On the 8th of September, we ran a campaign for Are You OK Day with 17 cafes jumping on board to support suicide prevention in Orange. And on the 9th, which was the following day, was Suicide Prevention Day, World Suicide Prevention Day. There was an amazing outpouring of people. 100 people approximately walked from our Pilcher Park site where the first bench has been placed in an Out of the Darkness walk. All organised by community members. The site that they started the walk on is the site of the first blue bench, and eventually the blue tree will be there as well. They walked from that site to the main street. At the moment, that bench has a beautiful plaque on it in memory of a young man named Josh who had suicided. It's really heartwarming to know that the community has taken these blue benches. This blue bench currently isn't or doesn't have a plaque on it, so it's not identified as a suicide prevention bench. Obviously, we had a lot of public awareness about what was going on, and the community are aware of that. So they've kind of claimed it. They've popped a memorial plaque there for this gentleman, which was really beautiful. The fact that the start of the walk was there. And it was beautiful that the night after the walk I drove past and there was candles lit up all over the bench. These were battery operated candles, and they are still running tonight. So it is beautiful that our city has found a place of solace in this small gesture. It represents hope and remembrance. After our first meeting, the Orange Regional Suicide Prevention kicked into gear, or after the meeting in 2001, they kicked into gear, got 16 sponsors to raise approximately 10,000, I think it was 10,600, to pay for the blue benches. Further fundraising was done, which was about $1,000, $900 for the signage to attach to each bench, which has 000, it has 1300 yarn, 1800, the suicide prevention lines, and other supports in the Orange area specifically for people who are either contemplating suicide, are bereaved, having a moment, looking to reach out. So I just wanted to stand here today and just really push the importance of these benches. I know that I just read the motion that Mr. Miletto had put forward to have the benches and the slabs be provided by council, or the funding to be provided by council, which would be fantastic, to have these seats placed as soon as possible to hopefully help prevent any more deaths in our Orange area of our young people. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Bernadette. Our next speaker is Uncle Neil Ingram, and he will be speaking on item 510, the Draft Orange Regional Destination Management Plan, 2022 to 2026.
I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak today about the Destination Management Plan. My name is Uncle Neil Ingram Senior. I'm a proud Wiradjuri elder. I've been in Orange for over 40 years. I spoke to you recently about Gunnabulla Mount Canobblas. I thank you for your reflects the will of the community in preserving natural and cultural features of the mountain. I therefore support the changes made to the draft Destination Management Plan for delivering a more respectful document. I am here to ask Council to go further and remove from their budget the $1.5 million they have set aside for the mountain bike track proposal on Gunnabulla Mount Canobblas. This proposal doesn't reflect the natural and cultural values of Gunnabulla. Wiradjuri elders and community members are opposed to the mountain bike track in its entirety. It is not consulted appropriately by Council geographical consultant, archaeological consultant, and we have already spoken to Council and staff, Council staff and Deputy Mayor, highlighting that board does not reflect the real reality from a cultural perspective. This mountain bike project should be stopped now because of the following. Gunnabulla is part of our dreaming story. It's a sacred and spiritual place for the Wiradjuri people in Orange and throughout the Wiradjuri nation. The project will impact and damage Wiradjuri culture, both intangible, spiritual, and tangible sites and artefacts. There are sacred places for men and women. There are initiation sites for men, places for women, and much evidence of this is in the form of artefacts, including tools, ceremonial artefacts, and other symbols in the landscape. There are traditional fauna and flora used for bush medicine and bush tucker. The biodiversity is very important, as there are rare, threatened, and endemic species that cannot be found anywhere else in the world. We have occupied these lands for tens of thousands of years. It is of great significance to the Wiradjuri people. Looking after the mountain and preserving the culture, heritage, and ecology is a responsibility we must all share. We need to do this together. That responsibility falls to the traditional owners, Wiradjuri people, Orange and Cambon Council, our leaders in our community. Must ensure that there will be no mountain bike track development, infrastructure, or further damaging activity permitted on Gunnabulla and Mount Canobolas. Must ensure that this sacred and spiritual place is protected, preserved, and respected by all. I will now ask Council to remove the $1.5 million from the budget for the proposed mountain bike track and put a stop to the proposal immediately. I just want to thank Council, the Mayor, Deputy Mayor, the staff for the ongoing support to the Aboriginal community. I want to thank you, and hopefully you will respect what I'm saying tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Uncle Neil. Our last speaker is Dr. Andrew Rawson on the same issue.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Mayor, and thanks for the opportunity to speak to agenda item 5.10, Destination Management Plan, on behalf of the Canobolas Conservation Alliance. As you know, I have many hats. This one is as President of the Canobolas Conservation Alliance. We welcome the changes made to the draft Destination Management Plan and support the endorsement of it by Council tonight. The reasons for the changes relate largely to Gunnabulla Mount Canobolas. And put simply, Gunnabulla Mount Canobolas is a very special place. It has fundamental values far greater than just a hill to ride bikes down. You've just heard from Uncle Neil about the importance of the location for the Aboriginal people. And I could speak at length about the number of endemic species, listed threatened species, and endangered ecological communities on the mountain. I could speak about the number of people and groups who already visit the mountain and the iconic status this mountain already has for our region's tourism. But what I will speak about is the almost impossible road ahead if Orange City Council wishes to pursue the mountain biking project that will permanently degrade these values. Mountain bike trails do cause significant environmental damage, and there is a lot of scientific literature around the world on that. Gunnabulla and its ecological and cultural values are currently protected from such damage under state and Commonwealth legislation. The onus is on any developer to provide proof that their development either won't have an impact or that the impacts can be offset in some way. My view, and that of most of my colleagues, that you would fail to provide that proof. The money spent so far has gone towards trying to have this project assessed as a state significant project. The only criteria available to Council in this instance are high cost and the likely environmental impact. Would any developer, especially a council, want to be involved in any project that carries such high cost and high likelihood of environmental damage. I reiterate, this damage would be to the most iconic and important tourist destination in our entire region. You have to have a pretty good reason to spend public money on a project that is fundamentally built on high cost, high environmental impact, and unknown and tenuous benefits for the community. The previous council spent a lot of ratepayers' money last year on a feasibility study. Now, the Department of Planning requires a detailed environmental impact assessment, cultural heritage assessment, health impact assessment, a business case, traffic assessment, fire hazard assessment, and more, all to be carried out by qualified professionals. To do this properly would take years and would cost hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, ratepayer dollars. All of this even before a spade hits the ground. I can only assume this is what the $1.5 million that Uncle Neil was just talking about in your budget is for, but of course that's just the tip of the iceberg. What's not being mentioned is cost of legislated environmental offsets for all the listed threatened species that would be impacted, the cost of building the trails, cost of long-term administration and maintenance. It would all run into tens of millions of dollars. We also believe that you have no social licence to progress this project. I draw your attention to the many public submissions on Council's IPNR documents a few months ago. 94% specifically rejected any further council expenditure on this proposal. A similar proportion rejected any similar wording in the destination management plan. Project that is just. Many questions are being raised in the community about why Orange City Council feels it's necessary to expend Orange ratepayers' money in an adjoining LGA. Aren't there more pressing needs for funding in Orange itself? While we all agree that mountain biking is a great sport, like all things, it too needs to be placed in the right locations. A much cheaper, easier and quicker alternative exists right now in the state forests, where the Mountain Bike Club is already placing trails. So if you're still keen to support mountain biking in our region, then that location is plainly available and valued by mountain bikers. I believe that Council's mountain biking proposal on Gunnabulla doesn't meet any reasonable standard, whether on fiscal, environmental, social licence or cultural grounds. It just doesn't pass the pub test and certainly won't pass any detailed scientific assessment.
Mr. Rawson, I'll have to stop you there.
One sentence left.
Got it. Yep. I was going to get an extension for you, but that's all right.
But thank you.
Finish your sentence.
No, thank you.
Move it, second.
I implore the council to make the decision now to abandon this expensive, divisive and unnecessary project.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much. I just want to go back to declarations of interest. I need to advise that I'm going to declare a significant non-pecuniary interest in DMP item 510 as I am on the board of Orange 360, but as a council representative.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to apologise in relation to this. It was I've seen it, but I'd sort of just and I'd like to declare a non-pecuniary significant interest in 510.2 as I'm also a board.
There being no mayoral minutes, we'll move on to item number 3, confirmation of previous meeting minutes.
This is the minutes.
Thanks, Councillor Whitten. Seconded.
Just get something that isn't quite right in that. So page 7, which is the declarations of interest from the last meeting. So with mine, there were 4 of them, but number 2 and number 4 were listed as non-pecuniary when they should have been pecuniary. So if somebody wouldn't mind changing that.
Apologies, absolutely.
There being no other speakers, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Against? Carried. I'll move on to notices of motion 4.1.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm hoping to move that the budget for general donations within the small donations for the next year, 2023-2024, is increased to $80,000 and that the category maximum amount be reduced to $2,000.
Could I have a seconder, please? Seconder. Thanks, Councillor Evans.
The general donation program is an important way for council to interact with community organisations. I feel we have a role to be a source of funding if there is no other funding source that exists. However, both last financial year, the available amount expired before the end of the year, and at the rate of current expenditure, it will do so again this year. I feel this disadvantages groups who might apply later on in the year, and it just had been pointed out that we could have, first in best dress, but there are some events that won't be known at the start of the financial year. I've also noticed that asking for the maximum amount is a common default. So at $60,000, the maximum amount would allow for 24 projects. With this modification, if the amount was increased slightly and the maximum was decreased slightly, it would allow for 40 projects instead at the maximum amount. It is also worth noting that we can always approve a higher amount on a case-by-case basis if we deem it necessary.
Question 3.
Councillor Whitten.
In past councils, the grant funding projects, or by the way, I don't have a problem with this amount, but the councillors were themselves allocated a budget for which they could then utilise for projects in the community that they wanted to support. I found that worked really well because a lot of councillors kept their budgets for rather than having money being dwindled down. Group all allocated a budget that we could. Why did we change? I don't remember when we changed that, or when we changed it, or why we changed it.
Mr. Chair, it's a bit foggy with me as well. I don't think it was last term. I think it was the term before that was the thing. I know that the director would say that we're conducting a review. If you look at the staff comment, we might go over that again and remind ourselves
I just felt it worked
where
really
it
well.
came from.
Councillor Duffy.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I want to support this resolution, but I'm not too happy about reducing the amount because everything's increased, and whether it be a sporting club or whatever the case may be, their expenses have increased 30, 40, even 50%. So I don't want to support the reduction, but I want to support dealing with it. Because, we don't have to give the full 2,500 to each individual. We can always cut it back to 2,000 or 1,500. The ball is in our court. I totally acknowledge what Councillor Whitten is saying. We were giving the 2,000 councillors, we were giving X amount of dollars till we could put to a good cause as an individual councillor, because it worked quite well. It was the previous councillor, as you spoke about, Mr. CEO. But that's just my thought on this situation. The reason why I'm saying that I don't support the reduction is because council has the ability to reduce it as a whole on the night.
Might just clarify for the public record, that just for the audience, is that all of the ideas still had to be ratified by full council from their budget. It wasn't for councillors to wanted to go to that charity and it still had to come to this chamber.
Councillor Kinghorn.
Quite happy to move an amendment, which is that unless Councillor Peterson wishes to address 2,000 to 2,500.
I'd be quite happy for that to be put just to assess how the chamber or the rest of the dozen thought about it. Could certainly see the point. Would be happy to put the amendment to a vote to see if others agree, or if they are happy to keep it at the 2,000 but then increase it if necessary.
I'll move an amendment.
Move an amendment. What's your amendment?
But we accept the increase of what Councillor Peterson's talking about, and the figure be $2,500.
Have a seconder for
Seconder for discussion, but councillors can change them at any
on the
time.
night. Any speakers on the amendment? Councillor Greenhalgh.
I totally agree with the increase. However, I strongly believe that it doesn't matter what we make the amount, we're still going to exhaust it, because there is so many volunteer sporting groups, all those sorts of things that can benefit, from the funds. I think and this is my opinion only, but I think we need to structure it in a way that, perhaps we put a cap that, over a period of 3 years, no one is to receive more than, the maximum amount, so that we're sharing this money around a little bit more evenly, so that the same organisations aren't jumping in at the start of each year and putting forward their case. I think there's a better way that we could be more fair and equitable about how we distribute the funds. How that is, I don't know, but I think we certainly should look at something like that, because I know when you, being a new councillor, as you go back through some of those, it's, and thank you to the directors and stuff that put the notes in there to tell us what they've received in the previous years. For some of them, I think it's just a given that they've always gotten that amount. So, I think there is room there to move if we're going to look at changing the policy.
Councillor McDonald.
Look, I'm really conflicted on this one. I'm just wondering whether it would be worth sort of holding off on actually making any changes to this until the review has been completed. I wonder whether are we jumping the gun a bit? I know it says if it's successful, be incorporated into the review, but I don't know whether it's a question for the director or just a general throw it out there comment. But
we can take all of these points into consideration, and when we're reviewing the program, if there's a number of points that councillors would like us to think about and address, and come back with a more detailed report to council, including the suggested motion, which is the increase of the fund amount, and also the reduction if the amendment's not approved to $2,000. So we can come back with some further detail.
So maybe the amendment or the mover of the motion could put in that we wait until we get the review back before we make a decision on this.
I'm happy to withdraw the amendment if the mover of the motion is withdrawing the motion to go down those lines.
Yeah, I'm happy for more information so we can make a more informed decision.
Beautiful. So the motion will read a deferral on this till we have the restructure for us so we can make a decision on this recommendation. Clear as mud, wasn't it?
Yeah. I wanted to say that why don't you,
Second that.
Mr. Chair, why don't you just make the motion that the review of the small donations and grants program be expedited?
I'm happy with that. Seconder? Yep. Councillor Mallard.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, and I agree with this approach. I did have concerns that a review's being undertaken, so making a decision now until we get that information, in addition to the sort of issues that Councillor Greenhalgh and others have raised, I'd be interested to get a bit of information about how often have we had a situation where we've run out of money and groups who haven't received funding before have put in an application and missed out. The other thing I had concerns about is that this is a budget decision, really. If we're increasing the total envelope, then we're having to take that into account in terms of the budget. So I was worried about sort of making an ad hoc decision tonight. It'll be good if we can get the review and we can factor that into our budget planning for next year, would be my thinking. Thanks.
Mr. CEO wants to speak.
So context around that, through you, Mr. Chair, is that we can use the quarterly review, which will be, I think, 1st November meeting. We can put this within that.
Well, I think everyone agrees about a deferral till we have the relevant information in front of us. I'll put the motion. All in favour? Against? Carried. I'll move on to item 4.2, which is Blue Trees and Benches project. Councillor Miletto.
Sorry, before you start,
sorry.
I have had a sister-in-law that has committed suicide, and I just realised that's probably a conflict of interest, because it probably would impact the way I vote. So I will go.
I'm not
Maybe
sure
to second it.
Happy for the councillor to stay if she wishes to.
me too.
I don't think
that's a conflict.
It's not picking.
Second it.
Councillor Miletto's moved it. Councillor Duffy has seconded. Councillor Miletto.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I guess this is a notice of motion which is obviously close to myself and a number of other people, or a lot of people, who know somebody who has either attempted suicide or has been affected by it. I thank you for coming along tonight and adding to what is a very important issue. I should declare an interest in the fact that I do help this group and have done for a little while now. But I do so because I think it's an important issue, that it's a community concern for no other reason. I don't receive any financial benefit from it or anything like that. So the background speaks for itself. The Orange Regional Suicide Prevention Network Group have been working on the awareness program to support people who are struggling with emotion. This initiative gives those people, by introducing these blue benches, it gives the community who are struggling with mental health or suicide or an opportunity to reflect, it gives them an opportunity to go somewhere and sit and reflect. But it also is a way of creating awareness in the general community. And it was a great initiative by this group, because what they did, they went to the local community who sponsored these benches themselves. So there's a number of community businesses and organisations who have actually purchased these benches. So that is basically the history of it, and that happened back in 2021. And as a result of that, there was an appetite by the group to install these benches, but with the sheer volume of the problem, what's happened is the Orange Regional Suicide Prevention Group have been directing some of their funds towards other important initiatives to create awareness with regards to suicide prevention. So they attend a number of different events and create awareness by buying things to put in their booths and whatever to get that discussion happening. So some of the funds which they were originally intending on putting in these benches, the concrete, etc., has been diverted elsewhere. Hence the reason this motion is to ask council to consider whether they would put that amount of money towards the out of our budget, which hasn't been budgeted for. But if we can find that money within the budget, that would be greatly appreciated by this group. I think that the fact that there have been 4 suicides in the last 6 weeks is a real concern for anybody to hear about, and I don't know how we keep addressing that problem. It's always there, and to have 31% of all young males who died in the last year as a result of suicide, I think that is even more concerning. But as a council, if we can do our little bit to help create awareness, I think that's a good thing. The other interesting part about this initiative to install blue benches and paint 2 blue trees is the fact that there are other councils who have approached the Orange Regional Suicide Prevention Group asking for further information because they want to do what we're doing. But we as a group, and Bernadette Allen, who's the president of that group, want to be the first to do this. We've got the benches. We've had them there since before Christmas last year, Bernadette, and it's only a matter, and it's for no other reason, it's been the wet weather which has created these delays, and obviously at the moment there's a funding issue as well. So I would ask councillors to strongly consider supporting this program, because I think it's really worthwhile, and as the good councillor beside me has indicated, she has a relative who is a victim of this, and we all know somebody, and I don't think I need to rabble on because it speaks for itself. As councillors to support the recommendation that the council help fund the amount of $19,500 for the installation of these 13 benches in Orange, and I think there's 2 going out to Cabon, but they're not including this. But there is one company who's already agreed to pay the money to have their bench installed. So thank you for listening.
Thanks, Councillor Miletto. Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I'm absolutely all supportive of this. Mental health has been, we've got a massive mental health crisis at the moment. Never really went away. I think COVID's made it a whole lot worse. What I love about this initiative is not only is it a place for someone to sit, to ask for help, but by them being that beautiful blue colour, it's also keeping it in our consciousness. We're constantly seeing it. One of the big stigmas with mental health issues is that there's been a lot of shame associated with speaking up. There's been a lot of historically a lot of judgment of people with mental health issues, and I think the more that we talk about it as a society, and the more we, for want of a better term, normalise it in our conversations, the more people are going to feel supported and feel comfortable to come out and ask for help. So absolutely, I 100% support this. Thank you, Councillor.
Councillor Peters.
Thank you. I support the motion as well. I was going to say similar things to Councillor McDonald, but I'll add on to that I know that there's a lot of community interest and support of this project. I think of when Councillor Miletto organised Bonnie Taylor was involved in the organisation of her to come for the round table a couple of years ago, and that was sold out, the dinner, within a day or two. It had quite a lot of attendance, so it's something the community feels well behind, and as a community representative, I fully support it.
Councillor Greenhalgh.
So first of all, I'd just like to thank Councillor Miletto for bringing this motion forward. I do have to declare an interest because I am a group leader of the Compassionate Friends group, a new group that we've formed in Orange for bereaved parents. You have my full support on this. I think if we can do anything possible to make sure that everyone can go home and their child will come home at night, any small step we can make to make sure that happens, I think is a good step. Recently, my husband was a contestant in the Beyond Blue fundraiser, which the Mayor and myself attended. We raised over $25,000. So I think that's a clear indication from our community how important and how passionate they are about this. So, I recommend that everyone get behind this as well. I think, any small step we can make to prevent this happening in our community, we're not going to solve the problem, but, we might just stop one or two of those people having those thoughts. And I know for sure and certain, if I was walking through a park and there was a young male particularly sitting on one of those benches, I would definitely approach them and ask the question, are you okay? So thank you once again for all the work you do.
Councillor Duffy.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I first of all want to acknowledge Councillor Miletto for bringing this back into the chamber and reigniting it. I'm a great supporter of it when it first initiated in the chamber. I think it was a fantastic idea. It's one of these decisions which, as a council, we're responsible for helping facilitate health matters, and that's what this is. But we're also doing it at the same time as providing seating. But I did notice on the way to Sydney on Saturday that when I was driving on the train, I caught the train in there, I saw a number of trees that were painted blue in various different avenues of different parts of their cities areas, which I thought was absolutely fantastic because it reminded you of what we're actually trying to do here. It's the same when you drive along Woodward Street and you see the ones here in the picture. You think of, and coming from a town like Orange where we've had generations of my family here, you think of those ones who have moved on in unfortunate circumstances. And it's something I'm fully 100% supportive of. I'm pretty sure that our accountant has the ability to find the money that is needed, and it's been probably highlighted before in the things. But I just want to, as I said, I look forward to this happening, and don't be afraid to put them in the main centre area towns either, because it sends a message to us as we walk by.
Councillor Whitten.
Mayor, I'm fully supportive. I'd just like to make a note for the public record that I sit on the board of Marathon Health, who oversees base organisations within the Central West. And from memory, a question through you, and I hope you don't mind, Mr Mayor, if I put it to Councillor Miletto. From memory, Councillor Miletto, there are signs near these seats with contact numbers for... Is that correct? I think we talked about that in the last council, that there was going to be some...
Yes, that's correct.
Yep.
Can I clarify?
Mr CEO?
Clarify a matter just in this report. If you support this, just want to clarify that we will find the money, but when we do the quarterly review in November, it will pop up as an adjustment. I wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
There being no other speakers, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Oh, sorry.
Sorry, just a point of clarification. If the motion is passed, I'm just after a time frame when those funds would be made available.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the benches that are down the depot, trees are yet to be painted, so this is not to do with the trees. The council is being asked to fund and perform the installation. So all of a sudden we're being asked to install 13 benches. Take it on notice. I'll have to talk to Mr. Greenham and his crews. The money would be available tomorrow. It's whether the crews can get into it that I don't know today. Don't worry, Mr. Greenham. It's okay. Take it on notice, Mr. Chair. I'll come back to you as soon as I can.
Next week will be fine, thank you.
I'm on leave.
Oh, anyway.
Fine.
It's not.
I'll put the motion. All in favour? Unanimous.
I was trying to work out what we were doing.
We'll move on to item 4.3, which is notice of motion, engaging deviant youth to prevent crime. Councillor Miletto, and I'll second this motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and other councillors. This is an issue which was brought to my attention by a writer, Mr. David Harding of Ashen Consultants and Consultancy. And basically, it stemmed out of a program which they ran in Canberra with regards to an area at Canberra, and it involved a program which they ran between Canberra East and Canberra West. And what they did, they had a control area and a treatment area, and they did an intervention period between July 2018 and January 2020, and it was based on observations of certain people, I guess you could call them, defiant youth, and it also involved Neighbourhood Watch, was a conduit into behaviour of youth and etc. And based on the studies that they'd done, they looked at it was a guide to deviant behaviour and looking at alternate pathways, and when they worked out why youth were committing crime and how they were doing it, things like that, they had to understand what the problem was before they could address it. Based on the some of the issues which we've been having in Orange, I thought it was an opportunity for council to investigate assisting in the development of crime prevention initiatives, and whether to canvass whether there's an opportunity of implementing such a program to engage youth in the prevention of crime. So it's what we're looking at doing is to find out whether a similar program could work in Orange. In Canberra, they looked at an area covering about 6,000 households, which contained about 14,000 people, and they found by implementing these strategies and having a look at it, it reduced crime in those areas, in particular burglaries and break-in and steals, things like that, by 43%. It was certainly worthwhile, and I think that based on some of it, and it's not only about breaking in as things like that, it's other deviant behaviour. So I think that anything that which we can do as a council to help our community, whether it's the police or our citizens, I think it can only be a positive move. So I've moved this motion that council investigate assisting the development of crime prevention interventions and opportunities of implementing a program to engage youth to prevent crime. So that's basically the history of it, councillors, and the councillors who were able to go to the crime forum the other day. We did hear the police and a number of people addressing their concerns with to things which are happening in Orange. The police are certainly doing their best under the circumstances, and they are making some inroads, but that's not what this program's about. It's about engaging deviant youth to prevent crime. So we want to try and prevent it from happening before it does. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Mileto. I'll just quickly speak. I applaud you for bringing this to council. I think any ways and means that we can help the police and have a program so it doesn't get to the police, so youth or whoever are committing the crime, that we can prevent them from committing the crime in the first place, is a fantastic idea. And I'd like to see us investigate it, and then hopefully we can implement it if it's going to work. But as Chair of the Crime Committee, well done. Thank you. Any other speakers? Councillor Duffy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, I support this 100% as well. As you said, anything can be done to help the issues that are there. And again, I thank Councillor Mileto for his involvement in this here. But I also want to say this much too. I think it's an opportunity for us as a council, as a body, to thank the police for their public meeting here they had. I don't know whether you know what's happening around town at the moment, but their presence around the CBD and around what's happening around in town has been exceptionally good in recent weeks. I think we should acknowledge that as well. And again, I'll just go back to that. I support this 100%.
Councillor Whitten.
Mr. Mayor, I'll be supporting it. Will we get a chance to sort of get a presentation from this organisation before they?
That'll be based. Sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor. That'll be based on feedback which we get with regards to making those inquiries, and speak to the author who contacted me, and get some further information to see what opportunities are available to us, and we'll decide then, depending on costings, etc. So we need to know what it's going to cost, etc., before we make any decision.
And I suppose one other question is, so it's like a peer group, is it? Like they take peers out of that situation and get them to be leadership people, is that?
Yeah, that's part of it. It's there's several different treatments which they use, and one is for those people who have been charged by the police or brought on a police notice, whether, on some occasions, not all youth are charged for their first offence, depending on how severe it is. They might receive warnings. So what they do is they interview those people to find out why they're doing and what their triggers are, and what their MO is and committing crimes, what they're looking for and breaking into houses, and they speak to family members, things like that. So it is in some ways community driven. What they were doing in Canberra, my understanding is that they were using the Neighbourhood Watch program as a conduit into what the problems were or the concerns were, to get to other issues or people, to find out what made them commit the crime. So, and at the end of that, as a result of that, they were looking at alternate pathways for these people, because as the good inspector said the other day, it doesn't matter. There are some people out there, it doesn't matter what you do, they're not going to listen to you. But there is a large percentage of youth who don't want a criminal record. They've made a mistake. So is there an opportunity to identify what those issues are early on, and maybe look at pathways to put them on the right track and prevent him from reoffending in the future? So that's basically my understanding of how the program runs.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any other speakers? Oh, Councillor Kinghorn.
So I think this is a good idea, but I think it could go a bit further. I noticed the observation and engagement with deviants, which is what they used, the terminology they used. They were obviously able to do that, and I thought that was interesting, because I don't know how they were able to observe people sometimes before they actually engaged in the sort of deviant behaviour. It could be, if there were skills if we were able to develop skills in learning to engage with some of these people, then it could be used in lots of ways. So I think it's great.
Thanks, Councillor Kinghorn. I do, I'll make the Neighbourhood Watch, that went by the wayside. That was pretty popular, a couple of decades ago. So, I like that aspect of too, looking after your neighbours and looking out for your neighbours as well. Okay, I'll put the motion all in favour. Oh, sorry, Councillor Mallard, did you want to speak?
I think there were some other speakers as well, potentially. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, look, I'm open to supporting this motion because the motion itself is quite generic in what it's asking council to do, and it's about investigating, potentially implementing some form of intervention and program. I am looking at the background bit. Like I originally was concerned about that, but on the substance of the motion, I'm going to be open to supporting that. But basically, what we've been sent is a sales pitch. It's a consultant has emailed a pitch that they've got an intervention that works, and basically implying that if we're up to it, he'll talk about us paying him to come and do work. I'll be keen to have the council staff look at what evidence-based interventions there are, including this one, and come back with some information about what options we've got. So this might be one of the options, but yeah, I'm from having a quick look at that and from the background I do have, we'll wait and see what we've got. I mean, the other things I wanted to comment on, one of them is we've got a lot of services, programs and interventions running in this space already in the community. So while I think, I commend the intention of Councillor Miletto in bringing this up and that we're trying to tackle a problem in the community, but we know that there's already a lot of resources going in a lot of different areas, from Commonwealth, from state, from NGOs, and council playing a role as well in providing youth services. So some of this attempt to provide interventions and alternative pathways is I think already there. So I'm kind of mindful we want to avoid duplicating. We also want to avoid muddying the waters. So I think one of the things that as a council we can hopefully look at doing more is playing a role in leading the coordination of what sort of work is going on, because I think it's not just about individual programs, but about making sure that they're all working towards the same ends, and that they're measuring how well we're going. And there's a lot of work on things like collective social impact that are really useful in that sort of area. And I guess the final thing I wanted to say, reflecting on both the police precinct meeting that we attended recently, which I think was really constructive, and it's really important, that work that's happening, and also these sorts of areas that they're really targeting young people who are already engaging in antisocial and problematic behaviour, but they're focused on dealing with those individuals and those behaviours, where what we need to also have is a recognition, and we've got this, our community strategic plan recognised the importance of inequality and disadvantage, and in particular the intergenerational impacts. We heard that from the police about the parenting is an issue, that we've got to break those cycles as part of what we're doing. So I think this will be one important step, but I think there's also more that I hope we can keep looking at as a council in terms of what are we doing to try to tackle that entrenched disadvantage and how we break those intergenerational patterns. Thanks.
I don't think there was any other speakers over that side, was there? No. I'll put the motion. All in favour? Unanimous. I'll move on to item 5.1, which is resolutions from policy committee meetings.
Move the recommendation.
Thanks, Councillor Whitten. Seconded by Councillor Duffy.
Yeah, just a general comment about when it comes into the structure. I just want to reiterate, and I want to hopefully the director takes back to the staff that I've noticed that we had the crews out filling up potholes while it was absolutely pouring rain. I think that's absolutely a great a response from the staff to be out there doing that and looking after our ratepayers. But also I want to give the opportunity to us to say, look, hey, we've been copping a bit of flack about Clergate Road, but we have Clergate Road. We can't do much about Clergate Road until the weather finds up. We have funding for that, and that's going to be done. I want to get that across to the public media about what's actually happening there, because we have got the funding. Because you drive across our city and probably into other areas in Dubbo and Bathurst and Cabon, some of those roads, they don't have the funding for it. They've admitted they don't have the funding for it. So they're in a spot of bother. But our worst patch of the road, we have the funding for it, and we're just waiting for the fine weather to get stuck into it. But I just want to, hopefully the director will go back to his staff and thank those patch guys for getting out and having a crack.
Thanks, Councillor Duffy. I know that we are going to implement some signs which Councillor Kinghorn brought up about roads that were going to be earmarked to be done, and Clergate Clergate Road is one of those. Any other speakers? There being no speakers, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Against? Carried. 5.2, I'd like to move from the chair. 61B Mulder Street. Can I have a seconder?
Second it.
It's Councillor Whitten. Any other speakers? There being no speakers, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Unanimous. 5.3, which is the 2021-2022 financial statements on page 109. Move it. Thanks, Councillor Duffy. A seconder. Councillor Floyd. Any speakers? There being no speakers, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Against? Carried. Item 5.4, which is statement of investments on page 123. Let me finish, Councillor Duffy. Councillor Duffy has moved. Any seconders? Thanks, Councillor Peterson. Any speakers on this motion? Councillor Kinghorn.
I'll just, so page 126 has got the graphs of how we're going with our investments compared to a couple of options for benchmarking, and obviously looking at the second graph is a much more impressive performance than the first one. I'm just wondering that because obviously we're struggling a bit to get a decent interest rate at the moment because the cash rates have gone up and our investments are longer term, on the table on the next page, it looks like more than half of what we have invested is at least 1 year. So I'm just wondering how worried we are about that. So like 30.94% is between 2 and 5 years, and 21.6 is 1 to 2 years. So if they're stuck at the lower interest rate, that means that graph will continue to get worse. And I'm just wondering how concerned we are about that.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I can tell you we are concerned, and talking to the new CFO, she has a plan to address this. If you will let me, I'll take this on notice and ask her to give a bit of an update on that to all councillors.
Yeah.
Any other speakers? There being no other speakers, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Against? Carried. 5.5 is the fees and charges of Carl Sharp Cricket Centre. Can I have a mover?
Yeah,
Moved by Councillor Mallard. Seconder. Councillor Floyd. Any speakers? There being no speakers, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Against? Carried.
Councillor Duffy against.
Councillor. Item 5.6, which is the Airports Conference and Industrial Expo, 15th.
Happy to move, Mr. Chairman. Happy to move Councillor Evans and Councillor Whitten.
So that's
the motion for Councillor
Evans and Councillor Whitten, the airport conference.
Becomes a motion.
That's the motion. A seconder for that? Councillor Floyd seconded. Any speakers? Councillor Kinghorn.
Okay, I'm just curious about this. I would like to know what the tangible benefits are for Orange with this particular thing, because I'm not sure how a new specialist paved runway in Antarctica actually helps Orange. It's a lot of money. A bigger question, how do we measure the value of conferences like this? Because I don't recall that we get actually a lot of feedback from them, and I just think that if we're going to spend that much money, then there should be something, whether it's a set, just fill in the blanks format. I genuinely don't know. Maybe it's really useful. I'm not sure, but I would like to know, and I would like to know how we assess that.
I might, through you, Chair, ask Councillor Greenham, Director Greenham, to talk about this particular conference. The assessment is part up to you and part up to staff. Mr. Greenham can talk about this conference. I know there are conferences where councillors come back fired up with ideas. I don't think we have a set of KPIs for conferences. I could give you examples, say with the Airports Association conference. We are heading towards a master plan for our airport. There is work to be done. We've got a growing airport. There may be a nexus there. Roads conferences will introduce engineers to ministers to key staff.
The roads one's the next one.
Yeah. So I'll ask Mr. Greenham, well. But to answer that part of your question, it is part your judgment, part the councillors who go reporting back, staff. Mr. Greenham.
Yeah, thank you. It keeps us at the forefront of the knowledge that's available out there. We're certainly on the cusp of possibly going to an airport where we have security control and security screening. If we do, like if an air service such as Bonza Air gets up and gets their CASA licence and also gets approval to run through Orange, then there'll be a necessary security screening there. It brings all the airport operators from around the country together in one place at one time. It we get a lot of informal value by forming that network amongst the other operators. We've also got a very young controller out at the airport at the moment. So he's been in the position for about 3 years, but he's in his late 20s, early 30s, and certainly he wants to progress a career in airport management. He's looking to do further studies, but for the first time we're going to send him onto this conference as well as Tim Mooney. I won't be attending. My girls are doing HSC at this time, so I won't be attending the conference, but I will be represented by 2 staff members. I certainly implore councillors that are involved in the airport committee, if they wish to attend, they certainly should attend, because they get to meet with other councillors in similar positions around the country that are facing similar I suppose demands on their airports as well.
Right, so Councillor Evans is on the Airport Committee. Councillor Whitten, I haven't ever seen you at an Airport Committee meeting. Committee? You are? Okay.
If I may, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Whitten.
Yeah, I don't normally give up time unnecessarily to go to functions, because they can be a waste of time. This particular one, my background is in airline industry. This particular one is important because it shows CASA and the association that we understand the obligations of the laws of running an airport. And one of the main role, technically, as councillors, is lobbying. So when the big players are doing things, we want to be across what they're doing, so that we can, how do I say this, get them to help us fund any changes that we get into our airports as well. So it's not at the total cost of the ratepayer, because they have a larger leverage to federal government funding, and the big airports who run themselves, won't mention their owners, but they have a real interest in regional airports, because we're basically hub and spoking into their larger airports. So the more successful we are, the more successful they are, because they make money every time an aeroplane lands in the airport, and they make more money, more people on the plane, and the heavier the aircraft is. So, and I think the main discussion point probably at this conference is going to be around security. And that is going to be, if you saw what happened in Dubbo, being a substantial cost to the local area when they start putting in security checks. And it's going to come, it has to come. We just got to be aware of when is it going to be our turn, you know.
Councillor Duffy.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to back up what the Director said and what Councillor Whitten says. It brings us up to date on what's actually focused on what's happening around the airports as far as the technology is concerned and what can happen. But one must look at the big picture across Australia as regards to transport becoming a major freight, or whether it be passenger transport whatsoever. But also, as a council, we own a massive amount of land around our own airport. That could develop into jobs for our own communities that grows about the city. That's what probably seems strange, Mr. Mayor, that I've said that. But I mean, we've had time to think about it, and there may be some things. There may be an industry that may come there that could be airport related. Something could happen with that there. But I do think the opportunity is there for new chairperson and an old hand, or should I say, an old hand to go there and understand what actually happens. I think it's a big picture stuff that actually counts across Australia.
Councillor Greenhalgh.
So I just want to have my 2 bobs worth on this. I think it's really important that we don't go spending money willy-nilly, Francis, so I get the questioning of this. But I think as a new council as well, I think a lot of stuff is about relationships in life, and it's about this networking and stuff that we do. If we're not there and other councils are, we miss those opportunities. So, you know, we do need to be responsible with how we spend our ratepayers' money, but I think by not sending people to some of these things, I think we would definitely be missing out. And I think as a young and a new council, you know, we all play our role in attending certain things so that, you know, we can get the knowledge to keep moving our colour city forward into the future. So I think it is really important. And I think, you know, from a sales perspective, I'm in sales, we go to these things, we do networking and stuff like that. I think it's really hard to put a dollar amount on what we actually get out of it because, you know, if it means we secure 1 grant, we've paid for all these conferences we've been to all year. So, you know, I think they are very valuable. So, you know, I think some councils that we talk to at some of these meetings, they don't get the opportunity to go to these. Some of them really don't get the opportunity to go and they are missing out. So, you know, thank you to our directors and stuff for letting us attend these conferences because they are very valuable.
Councillor Peterson.
Only to follow up with some of the comments made by other councillors. Given that there is a set budget, I think it's $60,000, at the end of the financial year, is there a report on what conferences we attended, the cost and who went? Transparency.
Correct, yes there is.
Councillor Evans.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'd like to thank the councillor for his nomination. I'm looking forward to this conference. I've been doing a bit of work on the business chamber side of things, talking to local businesses about how we're going to continue to engage local, or the airport and airlines further afield other than what we've already got here. So to go down and also with the experience hands of Councillor Whitten as well to learn who's who in the zoo and start building, as we've talked about, those relationships with airlines and airports and learn what's going on, I think is really important. So again, I think what's going to come out of this conference is going to be immeasurable in value.
I'll just make a quick comment if I could. I went to the airports conference a couple of years ago and yeah, you do bring back, you know, ideas, solar panels on roofs of car parks, industrial land, like every council, every council that had a major regional airport spoke about industrial land. Just to reiterate what Councillor Duffy flip-flopped about. Yeah, it's good knowledge, and you get to figure out what is going on in the industry, and you can bring those ideas back. And I think if councillors are going to give up their time and their money from their normal jobs to go away and represent Orange, I think we should be giving them the opportunity. With that,
Just got a question, Mr. Mayor.
is it a question or a point of clarification? It's a question.
I don't
Thanks.
use point of clarification.
Thank you.
I think it's important that I think it's very healthy that councillors everything we spend, and I applaud the council for raising it. And
what's your question?
It's a process question. Traditionally, we would bring back reports, and this time Councillor Evans and I will do a report and present it to council.
Thank you. There being no other speakers, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Against? Unanimous. We'll move on to item 5.7, which is the National Local Roads and Transport Congress.
Do the recommendation and nominate Councillor Duffy. He's an expert in roads, Mr. Mayor.
I'll second it.
Second that. Any speakers? Councillor Kinghorn.
Again, roads are obviously a massive issue for all of us, and it would be actually interesting to know how much, just ballpark, would it cost to fix every road in Orange? Interested? I had a look at the agenda for this. I think that some of the sessions seem relevant, but most of them just seem to be politicians talking. And just wondering again, I get what everybody's been saying about networking and just general putting yourself out there stuff. How useful has it been in the past with getting grants and things to fix roads when everyone's going to be trying to get their grants as well? So I agree that Councillor Duffy is probably the person to go since he has different relationship with roads to the rest of us.
I'm quite happy to
Sit down, just hang on a sec. We're just going to get Councillor Greenham. We're going to get the director to talk.
Giving him a pay cut.
Tell you what, we're giving him...
Chair, I've never been to such a conference. I'm going to ask Mr Greenham to answer for staff, please. What is the benefit of this conference is the question, Mr Greenham. Specifically, what is the benefit?
Just because most of those sessions, there were some that seemed quite useful, but a lot of them were just politicians, and I just wonder whether they actually do say anything useful or if they just
waffling on.
Waffle.
Absolutely. Thank you, and through the chair, if I may. A lot of it is around lobbying. So I think it was Moree Council that started the ALGA one up for the Roads Congress, and it was instrumental in changing the funding arrangement under the FAGS grant and also under the block grant that we get for regional roads. So it does address, because I think previously regional road funding, going back into the 90s, was based on the amount of traffic that was on a road. And so you saw a lot of the funding being spent in that Newcastle, Sydney, Wollongong space. Moree was adamant that there was issues around councils that were on heavy black soils, lots of rainfall sometimes, and the roads were deteriorating, and they needed additional funding. Despite while they carried a certain amount of freight, they certainly didn't have the traffic volumes that you might get on the coast or in the city. And so these sorts of conferences were instrumental in getting some of those fixing country roads projects up, and some of this one's more a national one, so it looks more at the federal assistance grants road component of that funding. But also we have, there'll be, industry will have their own displays at that conference as well. So it's, and they generally do have some speaker presentations as well, and that's invaluable to stay at the forefront of road construction and road management. The asset management plan, I'll have to reread it just to let you know how much value we have in our roads at the moment, what they're valued at. I think it also has the replacement value. So I'll double check on that for you.
Thank you. Councillor Duffy.
I just want to reiterate what the director has said there, the big picture, and also the issue of lobbying. We've had to change the government, and I'll be one of the first ones to pat Anthony Albanese on the back if he's down there, say what a great job he's doing. But I do think that the FAGS grants and the big picture of what's actually happening across Australia, which way the federal government is going, what they the big picture to occur, whether it be a road straight through the middle of Australia or a road across the top of Australia. And I think the Transport Conference, you're looking at the railway line straight up the middle of, which is not too far from where we are. And I know that the current Prime Minister was 100% behind that a number of years ago, and I don't think his attitude has changed. But I do think at these conferences, and just like the airport conferences, you have to be there as a player. Political parties, the major political parties take notice of who goes to these conferences. But also when you go to this conference, you get a book that reports on the state of the nations of the roads, and not every council gives that. I know that Orange has been doing that. I know most of the councils are out there, and you do get a report that comes usually with the bag that says what the state of the roads across the nation. It's totally well worth it. It's more focused. It also helps push see various different types of grants that are available.
So you'll bring a report back anyway, won't you?
Always do that.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Duffy. Councillor Mallard.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Yeah, happy to support the motion, and I am looking forward to the report back from Councillor Duffy. In addition to the lobbying and the other reasons to be there, I can see there are some good, interesting sessions, including one on infrastructure sustainability for councils in the age of climate change, which I've been thinking about with the weather we've been seeing lately. I mean, we're looking at 3 straight years of La Nina in a time of global warming, and we're seeing what happens. We're very fortunate we're not northern rivers in our roads haven't completely disappeared, but we're still looking at every time we patch them, they're washed away again before you can even get out there on the road. So that'll be a great one, as well as one on using recycled materials in roads and other infrastructure. I know a lot of councillors have been getting interested in recycling lately as much as possible. So that's another interesting one as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson.
Just wanted to ask a question, and it's been mentioned both for this and the last item, the importance of lobbying, the reason to go there. I'm going to presume, having been to a conference on behalf of council, that council staff will speak with the councillors that go down and tell them what to lobby, because it's, I imagine, one of those broad terms. I imagine we have some specific things we get advice about from staff.
I'm sure there'll be a list, Councillor Peterson. I'm more than sure there will be a list.
I think the best friend we
Councillor Whitten
can have is the Minister for Infrastructure. Local government people should always be in front of the ministers in state or federal. They got the money.
There being no other speakers, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Against? Carried. 5.8, which is the report on the community consultation on the future of the Orange Function Centre. I'm a mover. Moved by Councillor Floyd, a seconder. I'll second it for discussion. Any discussion?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I'd just like to remove 3. We're not going to seek to meet commercial needs for conferences. Get a seconder, please.
Can I seek clarification? So does that mean the motion is now
Point 1 and 2.
1 and 2?
Do
Councillor
we have an
Evans is the
amendment?
motion.
That's an amendment,
As
isn't
an
it?
amendment.
Amendment.
I'm happy to move that as part of the motion. I'll do that. Sorry.
Sorry, who moved the motion?
Councillor, did you? I thought Councillor Floyd moved it.
Change your
Councillor
motion.
Floyd
I'm
moved.
going to change the motion that we get delete item 3. Will a seconder be happy with that?
The motion is now with Councillor Hamling
That's 1 and 2.
Evans. Is only 1 and 2.
It's Floyd.
Floyd, sorry.
Sorry. Any speakers?
I'll
Councillor
speak up, Mr.
Greenhalgh.
Probably just more a point of clarification on item number 2. That's already an existing resolution from the original motion that was put forward. So item 2 on the original motion was, from the community feedback received from consultation, draft a master plan for the Orange Function Centre to be placed on public exhibition for 28 days. So just some clarification if that's the same thing.
Mr. Maunder, can you address this report, please?
I suppose, Councillor, what we're trying to work out is what we include in the master plan and to then develop what Council would like us to see in the included in the master plan, and then we can develop costings that reflect that desire. I think that's where we're going with that report, trying to highlight the difficulties around centre being all things for all
Dual
purposes,
people, yep.
for all purposes, challenges that presents. That was all. And so, that guidance is required, and then we can develop the master plan and the costings.
Councillor Maletta.
Thank you. And just a question to the Director. By excluding point 3, that the Orange Function Centre will not seek to meet commercial needs for conferences, wouldn't by including that in it give a clearer picture as to what those financial implications are?
It could. There's the design limitations with the building. So it's near on 60 years old, not designed as a conference centre, designed as a community function centre.
Thank you. Okay.
We could include it. It'd look like, if you want it to be a commercial function centre, it needs to have this design element developed. Cost that.
Yeah.
It's possible. I suppose what the report was going to is that in its current form, it's not really fit for purpose for commercial needs and conferences of the like.
Okay, that's a little bit clearer. So
you can certainly do it, Councillor, if that's Council's wish.
Yeah, I'm just looking at, I guess for a function centre and a community asset, it's there for the community as a whole and to serve different purposes. I think by excluding point 3 doesn't allow that. I'm not quite sure of the wording of point 3 though. Are you able to give a definition of what that means?
Typically conferences. It's typically what it is. So a conference is, we've all been, right? So you go to the main conference and then they have 5 or 6 things going on at once and they have breakout rooms and that's what they want, and it's of that standard. That capacity doesn't exist down at the function centre in its current form. You could build it, but and then you weigh that against, well, if that's what you want, do you just knock it over and build a purpose-built current new one?
Thank you.
Do you keep adding rooms onto a house?
And I guess it's the unknown. This report will tease out those type of issues. But I think by excluding point 3 won't allow council or councillors to determine what other options may be available by excluding point 3. That's just my opinion.
Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just through you to the Director, one more question on that same point. It seems like a direction decision. Have we historically sought to meet the commercial needs of conferences?
I think they've just drifted away is what's happened. It's they don't have them there. They don't seek us out as a venue for the conduct of those events because it's not a fit for purpose building. So we see hybrids, they use different venues for that. And we even see trade shows that have moved. The bridal show moved a number of years ago from the function centre up to PCYC, for example. It's a matter of how far do you want us to go. The feedback that we've had from the sector is that it's not fit for purpose in its current form.
But if we were, we're not including it, but if we were, that would have ruled it out from being the conference option.
That's right. That's a matter of what are we trying to achieve, I suppose. But that's the feedback.
So Scott, just a point.
Hang on. Councillor Duffy.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, what a magnificent building it is, built by the blood, sweat and tears of Orange for generations ago, isn't it? Clean the bricks and everything like that. You try and knock it down and see where you go and get rid of it. Mate, you'll be told in no uncertain terms. I can tell you the guys like Ernie Tilston, his families, and all these other families that went out there and worked their guts out day in, day out, and built the place. Can't tell them they bred like rabbits, so their whole town's full of them. So they'll soon let you know. But I just want to go back to this. I think we've been told all the time. I've been told.
Can you stick to the point, please, Councillor Duffy?
Go to the point, Mr. Mayor. You know that I always go straight to the point.
You go round and circles.
Look. Schools use that function centre over there on a regular basis for their graduations and all those type of things there. It is worth its weight in gold when it comes to that. We're told the Services Club is going to do this. We're told that someone else is going to do this. Mate, we don't see it. It doesn't happen. We have got the facility. It was built for a purpose for the community, use of the community. So we're going to do that, and that's the way we should be doing it and going down that pathway. If we want to add to the commercial side of things, of conferences, let's find out what it costs. I don't think that last one coming off doesn't stop that from coming back.
Thanks, Councillor Duffy. Councillor Whitten was next. Councillor Greenhouse, and then you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I think it's finally time that council make a decision and give some direction to staff about what we want to do with McCall Hall. And many years ago, as the Economic Development Chairman, we put forward a motion that Orange, I'm surprised, I'm still gobsmacked that our city, as a health centre of excellence, as a winery centre of excellence, as a tourism centre of excellence, does not have a facility for conferences. And we put that forward. And then all of a sudden, all these organisations came out of the woodwork, I won't mention who they were, and said, don't do that, don't council do that, because we're going to do it. Well, it never happened. And the poor old McCall Hall has just been left to slowly rot. So we're going to have to make a decision to save it and the money on it to bring it back to a capacity that the community can use it safely. And I believe myself that we as a council should be pushing with other groups to build a facility for conferences here, because we're losing massive amounts of opportunity for organisations, generally all going to the Hunter Valley, and good on the Hunter Valley, it's a good place to go to. They want to have conferences out of Sydney where they bring about 5,000 people to the conference for about 4 or 5 days.
Councillor Greenhouse.
Sorry, Scott. I just wanted a point of clarification. In the meeting that we had with the 7 dignitaries, one of those was Mitch from Coulton Computers, and he offered to put his AV stuff in there for us to utilise. Has any further follow-up happened on that?
It hasn't, no, not at this point. I suppose schools events, so it was used by Kinross for the last, and it was great for Kinross. They used it last week for their show. And it was really good because they could go across and do their rehearsals. That's a community event. Perfect. But it does need some zhuzhing up for that even. Commercial conferences is a different beast. So, you know, we've all got homes. A 21st at your home looks fairly different to living in it. You know, they're different. They serve different purposes. So, and that's all we're saying. If you want it to be a conference centre, it has to look different to what it does today.
I mean, I'd personally like to thank all the staff for the work that's gone into this, and it's, you know, it's pretty obvious that 86% of people that completed the survey were keen for us to spend some sort of money to develop the function centre to bring it up to speed. So I echo what Councillor Whitten said. Like, I think it's time that we just, you know, drew a line in the sand, and, you know, it would be irresponsible to leave it in its current form.
Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think the sentiment we're getting at is never say never, and that's why I think we've taken that point 3 off. Just like to add, though, in that networking of the 7 stakeholders, I think there was only about 3 businesses represented. 2 of them were either nationally or global connected businesses that, of course, want this really big, flashy Taj Mahal of a conference centre. And one day Orange may need a facility of that size, but it's probably not going to be council that does it. What the business chamber has identified, and I'd like to add that they weren't consulted as part of this stakeholder negotiation, is the need for a small to medium-sized conference centre that seats maybe 300 to maybe 500 people if you can fit them. We believe that the function centre fits that bill. The report goes on to list a couple of upgrades down the bottom, and we reckon that with what's included there, we're going to get 80% of the way there. We're going to get pretty close. According to the public report, they're happy for us to make that investment. Also, probably worth noting in the destination management plan council is going to consider later on, we've identified conferences as an area that needs investment. It's noted in the report. That's all I've got for you. Thank you.
There being no other speakers, I'll put the motion. All in favour?
The amendment or the motion?
There's no amendment because Roy was struck off the list. All in favour? Against? Carried. Item 5.9, which is the Orange Regional Conservatorium Philanthropic, I've got that word, campaign.
Happy to move it, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor McDonald. Seconded?
Second.
Thanks, Councillor Floyd. Any speakers? There being no speakers, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Against? Carried. I'll move on to 5.10, and Councillor Evans has declared an interest. Councillor Power and myself. Councillor Whitten, you being a former member of Orange 360, would you come up and chair the meeting for me by any chance?
This is going to be controversial, Mr. Mayor. I don't want the pressure.
It's going to be controversial, this.
Bear with me, councillors, while I get to the relevant subject matter. Okay, the recommendation is on page 179. Item 5.10, Orange Regional Destination Management Plan 2022-2026 post-exhibition. Orange 316 funding agreement. Do I have a mover?
Happy to move.
Second. Councillor Floyd. Thank you, Councillor Floyd. Seconded by Councillor Peterson. Any discussion on this item?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I've got a
Councillor
question.
Duffy, Councillor
Just got a
Kinghorn.
question, which is,
Councillor Duffy.
has this been in front of the...
Councillor Duffy. Sit down, please. Councillor Kinghorn was before
Oh,
yourself.
don't we have to stand? Don't we get to... Okay.
No, you don't have
Mate,
to stand, mate. No.
You're going to be controversial again, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, I am. Because it's my meeting. I'm the chair. So I run the rules, right? Councillor Kinghorn, you have the floor.
Got a few comments on this. With the first part, I've got a couple of proposed amendments. Jump into the...
So you're moving an amendment?
A couple of amendments, if that's possible. So in the attachment, so page 37 of the attachment.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, you're seeking to amend the destination management plan.
Yeah, they're just small amendments. But
Thank you. Sorry, page 37. Sorry, yep, ready, yep.
Okay, so I'll just, this comes from the Rail Action Group. So the first one, the fifth dot point, continue advocating for high-speed trains from Sydney and telecommunications improvements, be amended to read, continue to advocate for high-speed trains, faster rail and more frequent services from Sydney.
Sorry, can I ask you to stop for a second? Are you on page 37 of the actual...
Of the attachment.
Of the actual report
Under
or page
enabling
down the bottom? Sorry, can I...
To page 30 of the report, page 37 of the attachment.
Sorry about that. So you're in the box. Enabling infrastructure plus... Sorry. Thank you.
So is that fine?
Yep, I know.
Okay. And the reference to telecommunications improvements should be deleted as it's covered in dot point 6. So the second one is page 52 of the attachment and page 45 of the report under the heading Heritage Activation Program. Could we add a new sentence to the first paragraph that states this also includes the heritage rail assets at Orange East Fork Railway Precinct, and the Heritage Activation Plan should explore ways to activate further heritage rail experiences.
Okay.
Yeah, can I just
yeah, please do, because
just confer with my staff for a second?
Yeah, because we're going to deal with recommendations as recommendations, but we're now adjusting the actual document. Yeah.
Right. Could you come here for a second?
We might
come.
Very complicate things.
That's okay. I just want to ask a process
Also,
question.
back to page 37. Just concerned reading that where it says one of the issues is difficulty attracting investment in large-scale contemporary accommodation such as Quest, Mercure, etc., when we actually do have a Quest here. So I thought that was an odd thing to say.
The oddness probably comes from the fact it's 3 working on this. Is that the last item?
That's the last thing. But sorry, no, on page 179. So point number 2, which is that council approve an exemption from a public tender process. I get that these guys do a good job, and I get that there isn't a lot of time for somebody new to do it, but it does concern me that we are giving an exemption from a public process. I just think it. I don't like the precedent, and I think that means next time perhaps we should give a bit more time so that something like this can be done, inviting other tenders so that we're as transparent and honest about it as we can be. I would hate to think that Orange 360 just assumes that they'll get this every time, because that's what we've done.
I think to address that, you've got to go right back to the fundamentals of Orange 360, its creation, its charter, the fact a minister approved its creation in this form, and the difficulty around the governance does pop up these questions. I do hear what you're saying. The service level agreement flows from this, and staff work very closely on managing it, but I do hear what you're saying. So you're not amending that. Can we have a minute, Mr. View?
Yeah, because we're not really amending. So you haven't amended the recommendation. We're just amending the draft.
Well, yeah, it's just number 1. So
Thank you for your indulgence.
Thank you. So, just to clarify, this report has been a collaboration of 3 councils. So, the amendments that Councillor Kinghorn have raised, I have to deal with them as recommended, as an amendment to the recommendations, right? So, we have to vote on the fact that does this council agree as an amendment those changes to the document? Okay, is that understood? So I now have an amendment to the recommendation. 1, 2, 3. So possibly the amendment now is 4 as well.
Sorry, Mr. I could deal with. Amendment is that council.
That means we'd have to deal with the items in seriatim.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, just a point of clarification. I did actually request last week for us to actually have an opportunity to sit down and workshop this as councillors. That didn't happen. I'm wondering whether it's worth deferring this so that we can have a workshop on this.
So, thank you, Councillor. I currently have I have a motion already. I now have an amendment. I have to foreshadow your deferral, okay? Unless you can discuss with your colleagues to do something and do it as a deferral, right? So
I'm going to speak in support of the deferment issue, which
we don't have a motion. I can't accept a discussion on a deferral. I don't even have a foreshadow, I'm only suggesting.
Sorry, I'll foreshadow the motion.
Thank you.
The amendment, I mean.
Can I have a seconder for the foreshadow?
I'll second that.
Thank you. All right.
So what do I need to do to withdraw my?
No, you don't have to. No, you can carry on with your amendment if you wish to, but you can withdraw it if you are going to support the foreshadowed amendment. Up to you. You're in control here, not me.
Clearly other issues that need to be addressed, so I'm happy to withdraw it if that means we can
Are you
defer
withdrawing
it.
your amendment?
Shadow amendment is
For
withdrawn.
the moment.
The foreshadow becomes the amendment.
Have the original motion, which is as printed.
Yep.
We have sorry, Mr. Chair. We have an amendment which is for deferral. Yep. We have a mover and a second.
We did. We had a mover and a second for the motion. Yes.
Greenhouse.
Had Councillor Floyd moved it and Councillor Peterson seconded it.
That was the original.
So I don't have Alzheimer's.
I do. Then we have the amendment proposed by Councillor McDonald. Do we have a seconder?
We had Councillor.
Thank you. I'm up to speed now.
All righty. We're all on the same page, councillors. All right. We're going to deal with the amendment. Well, is there any discussion?
I'd just like to speak to the amendment, if that's possible. Chair.
Certainly.
Thank you. As I just mentioned, I think we need to have the opportunity as councillors to actually have some meeting input into this. I've only got minor little adjustments, as I believe Councillor Kinghorn's are, but I just think it's just something that we need to have the opportunity to do rather than draw it out tonight and just prolong it. So I think a deferral so we can have the workshop and a discussion would be good.
Thank you, Councillor McDonald. I think the director would like to make comment.
I think we're okay. No, we're okay.
Councillor Duffy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm glad you looked down this way.
It's my pleasure.
Mr. Chairman, I should say, shouldn't I? That's probably preempting you.
Yeah.
Don't
give me
my first question is again: has this matter been through Cabonne Council?
Very, Mr. Chair, yes, and Blaney Council
It's been
fully
approved by
endorsed last night by one of them, I think, and this afternoon by the other.
Has been passed.
I believe so. No, sorry. Okay, I think Blaney might have done it yesterday. Then I'm wrong on.
Can I
probably
just ask the next
Cabonne.
question
Yeah.
to the director? How much time have we spent going through this with the video?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we've been working on the DMP for probably since April, May this year. In regards to Orange 360, they were a key stakeholder that we engaged in our industry forums. Also received detailed feedback from Orange 360 around the destination management plan, which was incorporated as part of the formal consultation process and also our exhibition period. And that feedback, including other feedback that we received through that process, has been included in this final version of the DMP, which has been tabled to Council today. In regards to the Orange 360 funding agreement, we have had conversations around their strategic plans, how that aligns with our destination management plan, so it's aligned to those three key objectives, and those three key objectives will form the service level agreement, detailed service level agreement and KPIs that they will be managed if that contract is approved through Council.
Further question, Mr. Chairman, is the fact that it was always part of this discussion when we had Mr. Robson, who was representative and the chair of CEO of Orange 360 in the room.
Chair.
That's correct. So we have really had the discussion with 360 as councillors.
There was a briefing by Orange 362 councillors during the process of developing the DMP.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to speak for the actual motion, and that is to what is as written 1, 2, 3. I think I've never been a 100% supporter of Orange 360, but I've always said they're gradually getting there. Over a period of time, they're getting better and better at delivering services and expanding their services that they deliver. And this is a part of what we're actually doing. And I think the staff should be commended, and the way that Orange 360 approached this council and came to the workshop that they had here with us. I think that should be. I'm happy to move forward with this. It's only for a couple of years. It's something that can be addressed a bit later on.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to support the deferment because the concerns that I have is that the Orange City Council engaged Urban Enterprises to prepare a destination management plan for the Orange region, and that was in collaboration with Blaney councils and Cabonne councils. Whilst Blaney may have approved this last night, I guess you have to look at the objectives and what they were, and that was to grow the value of the visitor economy, create a visitor-ready and provide industry to encourage visitor dispersion in towns and villages, etc. But listening to Uncle Neil Ingram speak here tonight, and he had some concerns around Bullabulla, I apologise, in regards to the impact it could have on the mountain. One of my concerns is that I don't know what concerns were raised at Blaney Council. I don't know what concerns were raised by citizens out at Cabonne. I'm just wondering, are they aware of what the concerns are which have been brought to Orange City Council? I don't think that is whether that's happened because I haven't received any feedback what concerned residents were out at Blaney or what they were at Cabonne, etc. And so whilst I understand that what the destination plan is trying to achieve, I think it's the benefit of the plan is it needs to be in cooperation with the whole three councils, not having a say there, here and over there. I'm just wondering whether the whole three councils need to get together to identify what the benefits are and what the disadvantages are also. So I'm not seeing that here. I can see three councils are part of a program, but not talking to each other such.
Rebecca?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. So throughout the process, staff from each of the councils have been working very closely with their communities and their councils. So, for example, we've had several sessions on the DMP and briefing, and we've received feedback from councillors as part of the exhibition period. We also received feedback from the community, and some of that's been communicated today, which resulted in the changes to the DMP, particularly around Mount Canopolis and the protection of that environment. That's been included. From that feedback, changes have been made to the document. In regards to concerns, when we did the exhibition period and received feedback, that was done across all 3 local government areas through the Your Say site, and all of that feedback and information was combined as part of that feedback process in the exhibition period, and that was then discussed and sort of tabled and then brought to each council for endorsement as the DMP stands today with that feedback.
Thank you, Director, because I might just remind councillors, we've had 3 workshops and this document was approved by this council to go on exhibition.
Yeah, and just to add to your point there, I think when Director, from memory, there was 250 survey responses. With that destination management plan, it doesn't move away from the fact, or try and hide the fact that bike riding or walking is something which people want to see. It doesn't try to hide that, but I think sometimes the detail about what plan is trying to say is sometimes lost. So.
Any further speakers? Councillor Mallard.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I'm happy to support the amendment for deferral because I think there are a few things to work through in reading the report that we had here. I did have the question because it was noted that the Orange Rail Action Group had made a submission, but no detail about what they had suggested or any changes that have been made. I think Councillor Kinghorn's amendments that she put forward and withdrew have addressed that a bit, so I think we need to work through that part. We did have the note about the changes that have been made in relation to submissions about the mountain biking and the Skyway idea as well, and I'm very pleased. I think there's been a lot of improvements made to this report, and particularly the removal of those things, and I note the speakers that we've had in the open forum tonight as well on that, and that I think in terms of the destination management plan, we've got those parts right. But yeah, I do think we need to take that, look at that, some of those extra issues that are still to be dealt with. I do want to thank Director Rob for the briefing that we had about the destination management plan and how it had been developed that we were given during the exhibition period, and also thank the other staff who've worked on it. And I know the CEO, I understand it's been the CEOs and general managers of the 3 councils wrangling this together, and I know it's a complex process, but yeah, I think it's making sure we get it right. So I'm generally comfortable with it. I'm certainly, it's not about point 2 that I'm raising issues, but it's just finalising that we're all comfortable with those final details on the destination management plan contents. Thank you.
Councillor Mallard. Councillor Peterson.
Only a question for you, Mr. Chair. If we modify or defer this and then ultimately modify it somehow, I presume it will have to go to the other councils and they will need to have a look at it again.
That was going to be my question. Yeah, this is going to be quite...
Through you, Mr. Chair, I will take that on notice because I don't think that is necessarily the case. You would have if you did endorse it this evening. I'm not sure that's the case. Let us come back and clarify that. If you defer it, right? My first thoughts are that if we add a couple of sentences about the Rail Action Group, their wants, and they're an Orange specific thing at East Fork, for example, they don't affect Blaney and they don't affect Cabon. A little bit of extra effort has to go in from Orange 360 to address that. So I don't think it's necessarily the case that we have to go back to Cabon, that we have to go back to Blaney. I mean, it's been torture getting to this point with a single document with 3 councils, 3 tourism directors, 3 tourism staff. So I'm reluctant to say to you I'm going anywhere near those 2 other than to notify them that these changes have been requested by Orange City Council. I'll say that tonight. Sorry, what were you waving, Councillor McDonald?
Oh, sorry, I was actually just going to see if I can close the debate on the amendment.
Councillor,
I just need to make, through you, Mr. Chair, if I may. Just need to make one point of clarification. If there is significant material changes, then they would have to go back on exhibition so the community has the opportunity to view those significant material changes. Yep. And that would be a 28-day exhibition period.
Thank you, Director. So I'm going to speak now. No, I'm going to speak, Councillor Duffy. So I'm speaking in favour of the motion, only for the simple fact is that we've been through 3 workshops. We've had it through council. This council approved it to go on exhibition, and there were no councillors who put submissions in. They've got changes now, but there were none that came back, right? So we're now going to defer it so that we can now have changes made to the document, which will probably, if we make changes that impact the other councils, then I'm certain that it will, from a technical standpoint, it's going to have to go back to those councils as well. So I'll be supporting the recommendation from that point of view. And I'm certain that after years of being on council, that with these types of documents, there are mechanisms from a process point of view that allow us to change them anyway along the way, because that's what it is. It's a strategy document. Gospel. So that's me finishing. Councillor Duffy, you had a question? Councillor Greenhalgh, sorry, flags in the way.
So just a point of clarification, this is a working document. Is that what you're saying? Like it can be changed on an ongoing basis? Like,
I'm sure it's going to be things that change in it, but I'll have the staff answer that question for process correctness.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So no, this is the destination management plan. However, when we come to council with any decisions that come from that destination management plan, which is our strategy and actions that we might want to implement as part of that document, that's where council would be able to make changes or decisions or not decide to go ahead with any of those actions.
And through you, Mr. Chair, at any point, the contract with Orange 360, if emerging issues come up, council can steer Orange 360 in different directions by consensus with the 3 councils.
I do have a point
so
of
we can be agile, as they say, and pivot.
I do have a point of clarification, Mr. Chairman. My point of clarification is if we defer this, we go back to the previous other councils as well, looking before we implement this. Well,
Mr. Chair, it might take some time.
There's no further speakers.
Can I just have a point of clarification as well? Just taking on what you said about nobody put in any submissions, these changes from the Rail Action Group, they did put in a submission to that effect and it wasn't included in the plan, so I think you're being a little unfair.
I'm talking about councillors putting submissions in.
Well, this comes from the Rail Action Group on which I'm one of the members, so that's not entirely true.
Director, you're going to speak again?
No, not necessarily. I just wanted to say that we did receive the submission from the Rail Action Group and that we did consider that and was put to some of those changes. There might be some tweaks, though, that we still need to.
All right. I think we've spoken enough. No more questions?
Close the debate, please.
You can close the debate. Are you the mover?
Mover of the amendment.
Mover of the motion.
Sorry.
Yeah, you can't close the debate. You're only the amendment mover.
I can't close the debate
But you
on
can
the
speak.
amendment. Can I close the debate on the amendment itself? Or not?
We deal with them all in one go, right? So.
Okay,
would you
point
like
of
to speak?
clarification then.
Yeah. Get away.
I'm happy to be corrected, but I believe they were briefings, not actual workshops on the DMP. And the reason I personally didn't put a submission in during the submission period was because I was told by staff that we would have an opportunity to sit down and go through it. And again, I asked for that last week and it hasn't happened. So my other point of clarification is that there is something that would affect all the other 2 councils that I would like included in here, because I do not understand why the Orange 360 Bicycle and Wine Tourism Network business case and project management plan were not consulted or included in the document. It's 2 years old. Got a copy here for you, Mr. CEO, if you would like it.
Thank you. Righty. We've got an amendment for a deferral. All those in favour of the deferral or the amendment? 1, 2, 3, 4. Against? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The motion comes. The amendment is defeated, so we still have the motion in front of us. All those in favour of the motion? 1, 3, 4, 5.
Go hands again, sorry, sir.
Yeah, sorry.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Against? 1, 2. Motion is carried. I will now ask staff to ask the Mayor to return and other councillors. Thank you, councillors.
Yep.
I know the count, but
Okay, well that finishes the meeting and we'll be going into closed. The Chief Executive Officer will advise the Council if any written submissions have been received relating to any item advertised or consideration by closed meeting of Orange City Council.
there are no such written submissions.
In accordance with the Local Government Act 1993 and the Local Government General Regulation 2005, in the opinion of the Chief Executive Officer, the following business is of kind referred in Section 10A of the Act and should be dealt with in a confidential session of the Council meeting closed to the press and public. The two items in closed meeting tonight are classified confidential under provision of Section 10A(2) of the Local Government Act 1993, which permits the meeting to be closed to the public for business relating to the following section. 6.1, entering into contracts for the supply and delivery of bulk fuel. D, commercial information of a confidential nature, if would be disclosed, would prejudice the commercial position of the person who supplied it. And 6.2, submission reductions, information that would be, if disclosed, prejudice the maintenance of law. The maintenance of law.
Yep.
Seconder, all in favour? Against? Carried.